it was just a case of give me the tools I need, give me the instruction I need, and then get out of my way.
Yeah.
Because we're going. And it wasn't as straightforward as that. It was a roller coaster. You know, there were a lot of challenges. I was the UK's first triple amputee. So we had to figure everything out, like everything.
Hi folks, welcome to the show. This is the second video with the amazing Mark Ormrod, MBE. We discuss everything from mindset to Invictus Games, so strap in and listen to this amazing conversation with this incredible guy, Mark Ormrod, MBE. So then it was road to recovery. So what was your mindset like at the time? Because it's going to be surely a wave of either realization or well, you tell me. I mean, when you sort of, the dust settles, so to speak, you sat in the bed, you're now conscious, you've had to have your legs amputated above the knee, which, you know, for most people that understand amputation is above the knees is a challenge then for, you know, the prosthetics and all that kind of stuff later down the line. At what point did you kind of go from, well, life's never going to be the same again? You know, when did that kind of sort of hit?
So the first week in intensive care, you know, I was unconscious when I got back to the UK on Christmas Day. I was unconscious for 3 days, and then I was spent 4 days in just this crazy drug-induced dream world where I was hallucinating, you know, crazy. Will Smith came into my room and visited me back from when he had that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air haircut. I had a guy driving a forklift truck around my room. I had an 8-foot bottle of ketchup in the corner of it was just a nutty 4 days. But as each day was going, they were reducing my medication and I was becoming a bit more compos mentis. So initially I thought I just lost my feet and a couple fingers. But as the days progressed, I started to realize more and more. And then in ITU, the final bit for me was when, and this is how powerful your brain is. I pulled my arm out from under the quilt and I kind of looked at it and I giggled. And then I said, why are you giggling? I said, oh, I'm hallucinating again. It looks like my right arm's fallen off. And I thought it was just fingers. And she looked at me as if to say, how do I tell him that he doesn't have a right arm? And before that, if I had like an itch on my chest, I was using my right arm that I didn't even have to relieve the itch. It's just insane. But they did a perfect job of weaning me off the medication so I could accept it bit by bit. Mm-hmm. And then I went upstairs to the Bones and Plastics ward where they really started taking me off it and bringing me back into the real world. And the first couple weeks, they weren't too bad. You know, all I could do was be in a hospital bed. It was taking me, you know, I've got a big scar on my hand there where I nearly lost my other hand. So I could only use 2 fingers and a bit of my thumb to do anything, but everything was provided for me. So it was just a case of getting stronger every day, staying awake a bit longer. But like 3.5 weeks into it, a doctor came in my room, and the short version of this is he just said, you're never going to walk again because you're an above knee amputee, which is completely different to being a below knee amputee. You've got both your legs missing. And I've never met anybody that with just one leg missing above their knee had any success using prosthetics full time. And obviously I'd lost my dominant arm as well. And that smashed me.
So did you go to the negative there, or did you come back and kind of go, well, there's the fucking challenge laid down, let's go? Or did it send you spiraling?
No, I mean, I wanted to kill myself.
Wow.
When he told me that, I was like, I'm done. I was 24. You know what I mean? I'd gone from being an elite Royal Marines commando, running around fighting bad guys and trying to save good guys, to a bloke who was going to spend the next 8 years of his life in a wheelchair. And, you know, that was hard for me to accept. And you're lying in bed, you can't go out anywhere, you can't walk, everyone's coming around feeding you and changing the TV channel for you and doing everything for you, when you used to do it, not only just used to do everything for yourself, but used to helping other people and doing nice things for them and trying to make their lives better. And I didn't want to hear that. So I got really down and, you know, angry and just was a mess. But then like a week later, I got a visit from a guy who had been blown up in Iraq in 2005 and lost both his legs above the knee. And he had both his arms, but his legs were the same as mine. And he came in and he told me a story. And he talked to me about the process and told me the kind of things I could expect to achieve. And so then my morale went through the roof. And I'm like, right, get fitter, faster, stronger, get the legs, let's go dominate. And from there on, really, it was just a case of give me the tools I need, give me the instruction I need, and then get out of my way.
Yeah.
Because we're going. And it wasn't as straightforward as that. It was a roller coaster. You know, there were a lot of challenges. I was the UK's first triple amputee. So we had to figure everything out, like everything from day one, because no processes or systems existed for anyone with my level of injury. Because most people before, even with a less level of injury, just sat in a wheelchair and they didn't want to learn to walk again or use prosthetics. So everything was a massive, massive challenge from day one. But, you know, I had a good team, good goals, good plan, and we just executed on it. And
do you think that was that paramount to not only your physical recovery but your mental recovery as well, because you now had this project, this kind of inclusive challenge / goal or whatever? When someone over here is saying, I've never seen anybody walk again who's been amputated above the knee, or all that, you know, all that stuff that they tell you, through to you actually coming through the other side and now achieving all of the stuff that you have achieved.
Do you know what the thing is for me is, if I want to achieve something and I see someone that's already done it, instantly that tells me it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And now if I want to do it or get close to achieving what they've achieved, you know, in the NLP world, it's called modeling. But in the bigger, badder way, it's just called copying.
Yeah.
I just copy their physical and their mental process. So although Mix, the guy that visited me, was different because he had his two arms, I found a mentor in America called Cameron, who had been hit by a train when he was 15, and he had the same injuries as I did. And this guy was dominating. Like, he didn't use a wheelchair. He didn't have adaptations in his car. He traveled independently. No one did anything for him. He was a full-time prosthetic user. He did all the things that I was aspiring to do, but was really struggling because no one back here at home had done it before. And so I reached out to him and asked him for his help, and he introduced me to his team. And then they all started mentoring me. And fast forward a couple months, I jumped on a plane. I actually went AWOL from the military because they said I couldn't go. But I went on the 9th of June 2009. I went out to meet Cameron, and I saw what he'd achieved. And I knew that I could get to a similar level of independence that he went to. And what was brilliant was that, well, brilliant for me, not for him, was he had been doing this for 6 years. So he had failed constantly, he had succeeded constantly, he had learned lessons. And I managed to condense 6 years into 3 weeks, you know, and 9th of June 2009 was the last time I ever used a wheelchair because of the help and support that they gave me and from the lessons they'd learned, him and his team, over all those years. So it's really, really powerful, you know, and I haven't, that's the last time I used a wheelchair, 9th of June 2009, I don't own one.
That's incredible. And do you know what? Talking of the kind of dark humor and stuff like that, I would have loved to have seen the person that got bollocked because a triple amputee went AWOL. Like, how the fuck do you have a triple amputee go AWOL on your watch?
Yeah,
yeah, you can only imagine what happened to those guys. So, do you still regularly speak with Cameron? Are you developing anything together to help others? Is that relationship still going on today?
I haven't spoken to him for a number of years now, actually, but yes is the answer to your question in terms of like paying it forward and stuff. So I travel to America. I try to go every year, but it's not always feasible. And there's the big boot camp that goes on. And I'm not exaggerating. People flying from all over the world, Australia, the UK, all over America, Canada, just places you wouldn't even think of, right? Where prosthetic provision, like some semi-third world countries, the prosthetic provision is non-existent. So they fly into this boot camp, and then we mentor people and we train them and we do everything. And it sounds a bit far-fetched, but from personal hygiene, how to look after yourself, wash yourself, with one hand, how do you wash this armpit, and silly little things like that,
Yeah.
all the way through to how do you reduce your medication so you're not taking so many drugs, because I don't take any. I cold turkey ditch them because I hate that kind of stuff. How do you, if you come in at the beginning of the week with 2 crutches, maybe you leave with 1, maybe you leave with none. If you come in a wheelchair, maybe you leave with 1 crutch. We're just increasing their independence and showing them that they can do it, and then send them off into the big bad world on their own with a better level of independence.
Yeah, that's really cool. Because I mean, you think about the amount that people, I guess, take for granted, just being able to wash or brush your teeth or all that kind of stuff. I suppose with the kind of level of injuries that that you've seen, just that alone can be a complete reskill, retrain, and so on and so forth. So since you started with your original, we'll just call them your original set of legs, for example, like, where have you seen like the prosthetics go in that kind of short space of time, and where do you see it going in the not too distant future?
So I was fortunate in that, because I'm military, I was issued the best kit straight out the gate. But my original prosthetics were called sea legs, and they were really good. And I didn't really have anything to compare them to, because we got the best, and they were the best. But what was a little bit annoying was that no one really knew how to use them to their maximum potential. It was like having a Ferrari or something and not knowing how to drive it to its max. And then when I went to America, they showed me, you get a little remote control with it. You can change the modes. You can have a little degree of control over changing bits and pieces on it. But then a couple of years later, they upgraded that model to what's called the X3. And it just came with a whole load more stuff. So I've got an app on my iPhone that connects to my leg via Bluetooth. And I can change 6 modes. I can increase or decrease the resistance in the hydraulic. I can change, there's so many things I can do now on my own with that app. And it's mental. It's great. It gives me control. It gives me freedom. And I'm trying to learn a little bit on my own of how to make adjustments, which is what prosthetists are for. They're supposed to do all the nuts and bolts, twisting and turning. But if you want to be independent, you've got to learn a little bit of that yourself to make alignment adjustments and stuff like that. So the technology's come on leaps and bounds, and it sounds far-fetched or maybe a bit corny, but I honestly think that in the future, the way this is going to go is it's not going to be too far off of like Iron Man style stuff.
Yeah.
I've got a guy who's an ex-Marine, Rich Browning. He's got a jetpack, right? If you ever go on like the grenade work with him now, he flies around in a jetpack, and we were trying to jack up a thing where I'd go and test it out and fly with it. But you combine all this stuff together, you literally like Iron Man, like Mark 1 Iron Man.
So do you reckon that in the future then and I suppose this gives amputees and people who've had challenges, like, I guess, some real hope in that, maybe one day you're able to almost instantly just step into almost like, a body that kind of does what you want it to, just almost automotive. Do you know what I mean? Is that the right word? I'm getting at, where you can kind of put it on like you would put your clothes on and be able to function almost the same as people who haven't lost the limbs.
Yeah, I mean, they do have things now, like for people that can't use their legs, they have exoskeletons, right? And they're big and bulky now, but they're trying to make them to the degree where you can wear them underneath a pair of trousers, and people that are paralyzed can walk with this exoskeleton and you can't really notice it. So I mean, this stuff, it takes time to develop, but my I'm not going to say my biggest fear, but what I'm not looking forward to is when I get old and I have to be in a wheelchair. But I think, honestly, by the time I am that age, and the reason I say this, sorry, is because I've got one hand, right? Unless I've got an electric wheelchair, I can't get around anywhere because I have to go forward and backward, left and right. And when it comes to hills and stuff, it's just not, you can't do it. But I honestly think by the time I get old enough to be in one, someone would have messing around, strapped a couple of drones on the bottom, and there won't be wheels in it. You'll just be flying around it. Yeah, and it sounds like bullshit and far-fetched, but I honestly think, why not? Why can't you? If my mate's got this jetpack that he flies around over water and everything like that, he's literally flying. Why not, like everything, scale it down in size, increase the technology, put it on the bottom of a wheelchair without the wheels on it. And then things like stairs are not a problem because there'll be sensors that will just take you up and you have that degree of freedom. You probably have some sort of glasses or VR headset where you can control like a drone, you know what I mean? But with a wheelchair. So, technology just it's insane what they're doing nowadays. It's exciting.
Really exciting. I mean, I'm talking on a Mac now, a Mac Air or whatever it is. You look at the original Mac that was like 20 years ago. It was like you had to have 4 people to lift it. You know what I mean? And now we're talking 20 years for it to be this like sleek, streamlined. I mean, you may be talking on an iPhone or whatever, but you look at the bricks that were only 20 years ago, which all this kind of stuff. I think for your area within like the prosthetics, I think it's going to be a really exciting time, especially with like the AI coming through, all of that kind of, the things that maybe haven't even been thought about yet, but that can be achieved in the next 15 to 20 years. Yeah, it's going to be nuts. I mean, you have to look at Tesla, for example, how far they've come in such a small, moment in time. You're not telling me someone like an Elon Musk or something isn't going to create or can't create a bodysuit that basically does what you want it to because you're thinking about what you want it to do. I firmly believe that's going to happen.
I read a story about a kid in America. I think his name was Easton LaChapel. And he went to NASA for work experience and left apparently because he got bored. He's like one of these genius kids, right?
I mean, who goes to NASA and gets bored?
Right. Because he's mega smart. And he worked with an amputee. And the arm that this amputee had was, I think, $80,000. Okay. He 3D printed one and it had the ability, something ridiculous, like to bicep curl like 40 or 50K maybe, or maybe it was pounds. And it cost $300.
Wow.
And he 3D printed it. And I'm like, that's the kind of smart people that are going to change the game. You know what I mean? And you see these films like The Terminator or whatever set in the future, and that kind of stuff, obviously that's a bit different, but these things we see cyborgs, kicking ass and everything like that kind of stuff I think is on the horizon at some point because there's some real smart people out there.
Yeah, super smart. And I hope, I hope it gets the investment that it deserves so people can actually get ahead and get all the research and this thing pulled through. So with the prosthetics that you have got now or have had sort of in the past, how did did they give you some real grief to start with in terms of like sores and all that kind of stuff? And then how did you get from that point to doing things like the Gumpathon and the challenges that you did and, the recent 5K stuff that you've been doing? What was that kind of process like for you?
It was up and down. What you've got to understand as an amputee is that you're attaching carbon fiber and metal to flesh, so it's never going to be perfect, and you kind of need to accept that early on. But what's vital is that the socket, so the part that your residual limb fits into, is as comfortable as possible, because then I'm very fortunate now that I don't get sores and blisters and any of that kind of stuff because the fit is so good. If you get that wrong, your whole world can be upside down. And what I compare it to is if you've got a maybe size 10 foot and you walk around in a size 8 wooden clog all day, that's what it's like when you have a good socket. It's like having a size 10 foot and a size 10 Nike Air Max. It's like walking around on clouds. It's never perfect, but it's comfortable that you can live without just being constantly in pain and angry. So I'm quite lucky in that respect that mine is a big combination of stuff. You got to get the alignment right, the settings right, and it drifts from time to time. But when you do get it right, sometimes you forget that you've even got them on. You're just walking around and just living.
Did you find that sort of like then within your kinetic chain that it give you sort of referred pain elsewhere because you were having to now adapt to a new way of walking, spine alignment, hip alignment, all that kind of stuff? Did you find that there was then a knock-on effect that, like, oh shit, no, the rest of the body's now got to catch up as a result?
Initially, I did, yeah. But the thing about it is, because of the severity of my injuries, because I'm a triple amputee, and like we said, it's above all the major joints, you have to be very proactive in how you live. Health and wellness has got to be your priority. So going out, boozing all the time, eating burgers, putting on weight, that kind of stuff, I can do it to a degree. I don't really enjoy that anymore, but you have to kind of live your life like an athlete because of the extra pressure that your body's getting put on. So for a double above knee amputee, it takes anywhere between 300 and 500% more energy to do anything than an able-bodied person when you're walking around. When you're running, maybe 600-700% more, because you don't have knees. You're driving everything with your glutes, your hips, your lower back. No knees, no calves, no ankles, no toes, nothing to drive with. So your body adapts to a degree, but you have to live the lifestyle that accommodates that. So you have to have a good diet. You have to train and keep your body moving. You have to rest well enough and know when to ease up and take the right supplements for your recovery. And I enjoy that. That's always been me from day one, which is maybe why I can do the things that I do and be so busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to kind of live like an athlete, even when you're not being an athlete.
And so let's go down the athlete route then. How did you end up in the Invictus Games and go on to, it was win, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's funny, right? When I first got injured, you meet a lot of people for the first time, and everyone would always come up to me, not everyone, but a vast majority, and say, so when are you training for the Paralympics, Mark? And I'm like, I'm not. Why would I do that? I don't know anything about sprinting or wheelchair basketball or any of that stuff. I want to leave my wheelchair behind and just learn to walk and live my life. So I ignored all that stuff, sport, and I had different goals. Now in 2016, I was sat at home in my office and I started sketching out my goals for 2017. And I realized that Christmas Eve 2017 was my 10-year anniversary, what we call bangiversary. And so I thought, what can I do to celebrate 10 years of life that I haven't done leading up to it? And I'd never done any sport. Now, the Invictus Games was 2 years old at this point, and I'd seen my friends go out there and win medals and have a great time. What really attracted me about it was because I knew them, I saw the ones that were underconfident, and those kind of things. And I saw them grow in their personal, they got their confidence back. They were proactive. They were going out there and living again. And I saw sport do that for them. So I thought, I'll have a go at this. And I think this is like a superpower for me. It's my ignorance with things. And I didn't know, like, on a sporting level, obviously, you dip your toe in the water, you start in a club, and then maybe you go to a regional level and a national level. I just jumped straight in on the world stage and I'm going to try the Invictus Games and see what that's like. I never thought I'd make the team because I had never done any sport. I wasn't in any of the cliques. I didn't have any friends in my circles that did that, but I just thought I'd give it a shot. And I was luckily I made the team. 700 people applied, 72 of us made the team, and I just went out there and I did it. I did rowing, swimming, and hand cycling the first year. It was an experience and a bit of an eye opener for me on many different levels, but it was great. I had a real positive experience and I learned a lot from it.
So who decided what you would be best at, or was that you or a joint decision? Who decided what elements you would compete at?
I did. And I was very arrogant in my choices. I thought rowing, that's easy. Forward and backwards for 1 minute, forward and backwards for 5 minutes. I'm fit. I'll smash everybody. Hand cycling, not a lot to learn. I'll just go faster than everybody. I didn't know anything about how intense cycling is when you've got to learn about drafting and cambers and gear selection. I was just like, I'll just get on the bike and trash everyone. Swimming, yeah, I'll be better than them. Really arrogant. And the first time I sat on a rowing machine at one of the trial camps, It was a 4-minute sprint race. I don't know. I'd never sat in a Concept 2 before. So I just went in like, I'm going to destroy everybody. And I have to have a fixed seat. I can't use my legs. I choose not to use prosthetics. I had a prosthetic arm on and I could only really drive my upper body. And I didn't know anything about technique. You using your lats, coming back. So I just went like a lunatic for 4 minutes and I went blind. For the last 30 seconds, I started seeing stars. I got tunnel vision and I went blind. But I thought, you can't stop because you're going to embarrass yourself. And I just carried on going until I heard the horn to signal the end of the race. And I got off of it and I jumped out of my seat and I bum walked across the sports hall back to my legs. And I sat there and I thought, you're a dick. You're an arrogant dick. You thought this was going to be easy and you could just out-muscle everybody. But you've got to learn technique, strategy. You've got to get your fitness up, because just because you're fit doesn't mean you can do everything. There's a different type of fitness for rowing than there is to swimming, than there is to hand biking, than there is to anything else. And so I really went to town on it for like the whole year leading up to that first event. 5 o'clock in the morning in my garage doing cardio, working a full-time day job, then coming back doing strength and conditioning in the evenings. And then I had to travel around the country on the weekends to go to rowing camp, swimming camp, hand cycling camp, and learn how these sports actually worked. And it took a massive amount of my time, but I jumped into it because my plan was compete once, get some gold medals, tick the box, and then move on to the next thing. It didn't work out that way. I ended up doing it twice. But yeah, it was an experience and one that humbled me.
I guess getting dealt a humbler early on probably led to the success that came as a result.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult in disabled sports. So I came back from the first one with 2 silver medals and 2 bronze medals. And I beat myself up a little bit about it because I wanted gold. And that's not because, I'm just not being a dick, but for me, that was what symbolized success. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't want to do it any more than once. But what's difficult about disabled sports are like classifications. So I'm missing both my legs above the knee and my right arm above the elbow. I'm a triple amputee. Now, I could race against another triple amputee who's got both his knees and an elbow. So effectively, he's got all 4 points of contact to power with, right? Yeah. And all I've got is one elbow and a bit of my shoulder. So on paper, we're both triple amputees. But in reality, he would have a massive advantage over me. Yeah. But you can't niche the categories down that much that you take into consideration every little scenario. Mm-hmm. So I came back a little bit angry as well, thinking I've just raced against blokes that have got both their arms.
So they don't factor any of that in then at all? There's no like factoring system like, I don't know, to the power of 1 or something like that based on the pointing, or it doesn't work like that?
I mean, you can. So even in rowing, so I'll use rowing as an example. Another triple amputee, right? We're both missing our legs above the knee. We're both not wearing prosthetics. We're both in a fixed seat, but he's got an elbow and I haven't. He's still got a huge advantage. But then if you make a different classification for him, he might be the only one in it. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. you can't really do it, which is why I didn't pursue it any further. I thought if you go to Paralympic level, I saw guys running in the Invictus Games who had both their legs against guys that had no legs because they had injuries to their knees, and it put them in the same classification, which blew my mind. So I thought, do I really want to pursue this, dedicate everything to it, to potentially go and compete against a guy at the highest level who's got his knees or his elbow? And there's like zero chance that I would win because they're professional athletes. They're taking it seriously. So, but I went back the next year. I learned some lessons, and I knew, because I didn't know that going into it. Mm-hmm. And I knew that, and I made the adjustments I needed to make to anticipate that was going to be the case again. And then the following year, I did a lot better. I came back with 4 golds, 2 bronzes, and a silver that year.
Because you knew the game, you understood the rules of the game, and you adapted and played to your strengths, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I knew how the whole thing worked. I had no clue beforehand how it all worked. But now I was armed with a bit of knowledge and a bit of experience. I was much better prepared to go and do it that second time round.